I'm still getting takeout after this. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. You know the deal. Please like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think. It really helps in the algorithm. And even if you dislike what I'm saying, give me a dislike. Tell me what you dislike about it in the comments. I can have you on. We can have a civil discussion about it. Now, this video was supposed to be up Monday, but I was having some technical difficulties. I got those worked out. So the advantage to you is you get two of my videos today because we got the one I'm doing right now in China, and then we're going to do an update based on some things that President Biden has done by executive order, the recent shooting in North Carolina, and I don't remember the other subject, but you'll get a video on it, so you'll know. Friday is just going to be, I'm going to tell a couple stories about while I was in the Army, and it's less military. It's how the Army, in many ways, is almost like being a college student sometimes with the way we act if you're in peacetime and able to do that. Just a couple of funny stories as the statute of limitations have run out on from Korea and Germany. I also have an endorsement, and I will preview an interview on Friday with ultimate proof, undisputed evidence about something very important. And it's an exclusive. Only I've gotten it. So please tune in so you can get that. I will open up with that interview. Now, when we're talking about China, there's something that most people remembered about China in general is how far back their history actually goes. Now, just doing a little bit of research on it, the the first dynastic ruler of China took power in approximately 2100 BCE. Now, think about that. That's 2100 years before Christ was born. That's a long time. Now, the imperial dynasty, which is generally what most people think of when they talk about China, and this encompassed a lot of things that you read about in history and the art of war and things like this, was began approximately 221 BCE, which is still pretty far back if you think about how long the United States has been here. Now, that transitioned to the Republic after quite a few wars with European powers for control of Chinese ports and the Boxer Rebellion and many other things until 1912 when China became a republic. Now, as a republic, they had their own turmoil in the 30s. They were invaded by the Japanese, who took over most of the port cities and Manchuria. And that led to during World War II, which led to the nationalists led by Chiang Kai shek and the communists led by Mao Zedong fighting the Japanese. Now, there's several ways to look at it, and Mao made his part in World War II out to be very large, as did the original Kim in North Korea. But there's also some stories that maybe the communists didn't play as large a part in fighting the Japanese as guerrillas as the nationalist army did. That's probably up for debate, and that's one of those that's in the eye of the beholder. So what we know is Japanese invaded, World War II happened, Japanese lost, then the Civil War commenced. 1949, the Civil War was over, and the communists took over. And we know what happened at that point. So let me read to you from one of my favorite books. The force at the core leading our cause forward is the Chinese Communist Party. The theoretical basis guiding our thinking is Marxism and Leninism. Okay, now let that sink in. This is, yes, that's my personal copy of the Red Book. Yes, I have one. It's my favorite reading. No. I hate socialism, Marxism, and communism. I truly do. I abhor them as political systems. And along with that, I have Marx and Engels. I have Trotsky. I have Lenin. I have some from Stalin. I've read the Communist Manifesto several times. I truly have studied and tried to figure out what I disliked about it so much. And a lot of what I've come up to is I just don't like the totalitarian system it becomes. Pure communism sounds really good. Everybody owns everything, but that never happens in real life because human nature interferes with that. So we go forward through China's history under Mao and the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party is probably the best way to say it. With that, we had the Great Leap Forward, we had the Cultural Revolution, we have industrialization, we have various methods to kill millions of people. Period. That's what happens. Millions of people died through starvation, through camps, through firing squads. And now we have what's going on with China now, which is their incursions in the South China Sea. And what's going on with the Uyghur Muslims. And the Uyghur Muslims, I will always bring up when I do a video about China because they are being placed into modern day concentration camps. You can call them re-education camps, you can call them work camps, but that's what's going on. And Disney actually filmed the live action movie Mulan in the same province that these camps are located in. And they thank the same security forces for their assistance, the same security forces that had these people imprisoned. So no, there's a certain Star Wars show I can't watch because I refuse to get a membership to Disney Plus based on that. No, I am not telling you to ignore Disney. I am telling you to know what you're getting into. It's like my last China video when I posted the list of countries or companies that have manufacturing done in China. With that being said, let's go ahead and pull up some articles that I found for this. And we're going to come back to the map behind me before it's over. Okay, that turned out to be more complicated than I wanted. Okay, with this, I'm actually going to link this article in the description of the video, but it's a Uyghur who was imprisoned for almost 8 months total. Did not understand why, was never told why, was given no access to lawyers, couldn't contact his family, and they didn't really explain why he was arrested. I'm not going to go too much into it because the algorithms and when YouTube checks a video, certain words will set it off. So I'm trying to avoid saying those. But what I will say is, but I'll link this article. It's pretty good. It's a firsthand account. There's other videos on YouTube where they interview people who spent time in the Uyghur camps. And I'm not even going to try to play any of those clips because when they talk about what happens to them, I guarantee you my video will get restricted. Okay, this is from the Washington Post. And I'm going to quote it. China can no longer credibly claim the concentration camps in the Xinjiang province are vocational skills training centers. The facilities where more than 1 million Uyghur, Kazakhs, and other predominantly Muslim minorities have been held over the last 2 years are indoctrination camps. Now, indoctrination camps, that's a very important term. That's a huge step for the Washington Post to take because now you're comparing it to the re-education camps under the Khmer Rouge. And anybody who remembers history about what happened in Cambodia, Pol Pot alienated half of the population of Cambodia by killing the other half. Was actually about a quarter of the population, but you see where that goes. Now, the reasons that they've been arrested, they want to go on a religious pilgrimage. They're Muslim. One of the pillars of Islam is a pilgrimage to Mecca. They frequently worshiped at a mosque. They had friends whom the authorities designated as suspicious. There you go. Be careful who you associate with if you go to China. Now, with that being said, and I'm going to talk about this more in the next video too, and go a little bit deeper into it, but President Biden, by executive order, has recognized the genocide in Armenia during World War II. And I've got numbers in the other ones. I pulled up an article that I could show you the approximate numbers of the people that were killed in that genocide. Now, the current administration, in keeping with Democratic tradition back to the 90s, refuses to talk about what's going on against Uyghurs and Kazakhs and Muslims in China as genocide. Well, that's okay because President Clinton did the same thing in the 90s about what was going on in Rwanda. Because if you use the word genocide, under the UN Charter, there's certain things that UN nations have to do. So that's one of the big reasons the word genocide is not used as much when things are ongoing. Because once that word is used by a UN member state or the UN itself, by charter, certain things have to happen. And by avoiding using it, they can avoid taking those actions. Okay, the next part of this is what's going on in the South China Sea. Now, here's just some pictures of the man-made islands. And what it is, you have the Spratly Island chain, and there's other reefs around it. And the Chinese have built up those reefs to actually be islands. Now, in doing that in itself does not violate anything, but they're not supposed to have military on them. They're supposed to be just, it could be safe waypoints for fishermen. They could be used as navigational aids, things like this. But China is fortifying them. And what they're considering this is a war without gun smoke. And I really like that name. And it pretty much sums up what's going on, because they have actually, oh, hang on, let me find the right article that talks about this. Here we go. China has 20 outposts in the Paracel Islands and 7 in the Spratlys. It also controls the Scarborough Shoal. Now, the reason this is important is once they put missile platforms and anti-aircraft platforms on these islands. 2, when you look at maritime zones, and I had to go back and look it up because I thought I knew the answer, but it's been about 20 years since I took a maritime law course, because I did take one about 20 years ago, and it was eye-opening / really boring, so it was about half and half. But if they start claiming these as their land, like it's part of the country of China, like the United States claims Guam and Samoa, American Samoa, then 12 nautical miles off the coast of these surrounding it is Chinese territorial waters. Now, some countries go out, try to push it a little bit farther, some claim less. And you'll see when we get to the map. All right, I'll go ahead and pull it up now. It's probably easier to do it that way. So the map behind me, as you can see, you have Vietnam going up to China, Macau and Hong Kong. My hand's getting my own way. Macau's a whole different thing, because I'll probably do a video on that sometime about what North Korea uses Macau for. You see Taiwan over on, wrong side. Failed as a weatherman. But Taiwan's up there. If you keep going north, you run into Japan and South Korea and North Korea. And then you have the Philippines. Now, with that being said, let me find the best way to do this. I should have practiced more. But you see where the Spratly Islands are, the Scarborough Reef, the Paracel Islands. Now, since a certain flu came along and people have blamed China, countries like Japan have started to look at divesting manufacturing that's being done in China and moving it to Vietnam. Now, with the Chinese controlling these islands and their Navy taking control, then anything manufactured in Vietnam, because the majority of the stuff that's manufactured in places like that goes out by ship. So instead of just being able to launch from Da Nang, Vietnam, and take the shortest route possible to San Francisco or Los Angeles or wherever it's going, now you have a more circuitous route, which makes it more expensive to transport. On the other hand, you have, from a standpoint of the Philippines, you're becoming surrounded by a country with over 1 million man standing Army Navy. So what does President Duarte think? Well, he's already made comments about what's going on. Now, there have been issues, and the United States has continued freedom of navigation maneuvers through there, and they need to continue. And something needs to be said, and the Chinese need to realize that the rest of the world is not just going to sit by while they take control of the entire South China Sea. And the reason it's important goes back to Vietnam cannot develop fully. The Philippines are threatened. I didn't even get into Taiwan and what happens, because since 1949, the Chinese have considered Taiwan part of communist China. Now, the Taiwanese have stood up. They have a strong army, And I'll tell you now, if the Chinese attack, they are not going to take Taiwan without a fight, and it's going to be ugly and could lead to major things because would the United States come to the aid of Taiwan? And the United States is vacillated in how it stands with Taiwan. They currently don't recognize Taiwan as a country, but they do give them very, very favorable arms deals. So what's going to happen? I don't know. I know the open source stuff I've read, the Chinese are growing their navy at an exponential rate, but to actually invade Taiwan or to say attack the Philippines or anything like this, their actual transportation fleet to move men, tanks, armored personnel carriers from the mainland to Taiwan is very small. So it would take a while to build up, and the world would see it coming between satellite photos and overflights, and it's getting in the intelligence world. It's a whole different ballgame. But with the Chinese trying to control South China Sea and nobody standing up to them, once again, as they said, the battle without gun smoke. So you just gradually grow your footprint until you smother what's around you. And at some point, when the US president sends a carrier strike group to do a freedom of navigation, what happens when they come up head to head with Chinese trying to stop them? We have the most powerful Navy in the world, without a doubt. I mean, our average aircraft carrier, I think the figure I heard was any of our aircraft carriers generally is the is like the eighth largest air force in the world when they go somewhere, just with the sheer amount of aircraft they carry. So it's not a matter of who would win that battle. It's a matter of what are the next stages if this is allowed to continue. What I will say is there needs to be a strong show of force. There needs to be a coalition of countries. And Vietnam's not big enough to do it. The Philippines aren't big enough to do it. But there needs to be a coalition to look at China and just go, enough. It's enough. Let your people out of camps. Stop trying to take over the South China Sea. Accept what you have and accept the growth you have in your economy. Because to be honest, yes, China's a huge country. They have a huge military. But if you think about it, yes, they have interactions. What are we going to call it? Interactions or issues or incursions or battles. They've had some with the Indians on a glacier. But the last true war they were in was in 1978 when they invaded Vietnam, and Vietnam won. Because I don't know if you know this, because as a veteran and as a student of history, I know what happened to us in Vietnam. I know what happened to the French in Vietnam. I know what happened to the Chinese in Vietnam. And they are a warrior people. They always have been. And between the Chinese pressuring them in the South China Sea, and you never know when China may decide that it's time to attempt another land invasion of Vietnam. No, it didn't work in 1978. My guess is it wouldn't work this time because Vietnam has defeated several powerful nations throughout history. And why not defeat the Chinese again? With that being said, we do need to stand up to them. And a good place to start with the coalition would be the United States, Australia, and India. But we'll see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what I had to say, like, subscribe. It really does help the algorithm. Share with your friends. We're at just over 11,000 subscribers. I thank you for that. If you disagree with what I'm saying, hit dislike and tell me why in the comments. And then we can have a discussion about it. As I said, there'll be another video with kind of current events updates. Friday will just be a couple stories. Not sure what I'm going to do Monday yet. Wednesday, I'll be doing an interview with Eben Thamby, who helped lobby to pass medical marijuana in Missouri last year. Really interesting guy. I actually met him while he was doing that. But we're going to talk about that and a few other items. But everybody have a good evening.